Hello, everyone. It is now 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You have joined the 2021 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, JMHCP, New Grantee General Orientation Part 2. To allow for additional sign-ins past the hour, we will start this webinar in a few minutes. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's 2021 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration, JMHCP, New Grantee General Orientation Webinar Part 2. Today's webinar is Part 2 in a two-part series of the required general orientation sessions and is focused on an overview of the JMHCP's budget, grants management, and performance management tool requirements. I am Demetrius Thomas, and I oversee the JMHCP TTA training and technical assistance at the Council of State Governments Justice Center. I will be moderating today's webinar, which is hosted by the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA. To give you an overview of today's webinar, first we will do introductions of our presenters, provide a refresher on the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Council of State Governments, or CSG Justice Center, as we commonly refer. Then the BJA's program office team will discuss the budget and grants management, followed by an overview of the performance measurement tool, or BMT or PMT. PMT is the required reporting for the JMHCP grant. At the end of the webinar, we will have time for questions and answers. Anytime during the webinar, you can ask a question by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and entering your question. This includes both technical and content-related questions. We will try to reply to technical questions in the chat window as we go. For the content-related questions, we will keep a running list and address them at the end of the webinar. We will do our best to get to as many questions as possible. If you encounter technical or audio problems during this webinar, please click on the links dropped into the chat box. Please understand that there are some technical issues that we may not be able to resolve. However, we are recording the webinar and will post it on our website within the next 2 weeks. Our speakers for the day include Maria Fryer, who is the Justice System and Mental Health Policy Advisor in the Bureau of Justice Assistance for the U.S. Department of Justice. She oversees the Justice and Mental Health portfolio and collaborates with the CSG Justice Center to assist states, local government, and behavioral health organizations to better understand the relationship between the criminal justice system and the mental health in the mental health populations, and to help create policy and programming that meets the needs of municipalities and the citizens they serve. Fryer previously worked at the North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission, where she advised the governor's office on effectively addressing the needs of victims of violent crime. In addition to working with families overcoming violence and instability in Coffee County, Alabama, Fryer has worked in community corrections in Fayetteville, North Carolina, helping to develop intermediate and community-based sanctions for repeat offenders with drug addictions. She also served in the United States Army as a member of the Military Police Corps. We are also joined as a presenter with Takesha Love, who is the State Policy Advisor for the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program in the Bureau of Justice Assistance in the Office of Justice Programs for the U.S. Department of Justice. Takesha has been with the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs since 2008. She is a grants management specialist for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Office, BJA. In this role, she manages and provides guidance in the administration of the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, JMHCP grant funding, Adult Drug Court, ADC grant funding, and Justice Assistance Grant, JAG grant funding. Ms. Love has a strong financial background and has been managing formula and discretionary grant programs for over 16 years. She first started administrating grants with the Department of Health and Human Services in the Office of Grant Management as a grant management specialist, where she managed over 300 grants for the Office of Community Services and served as a lead specialist for the Assets for Individual Development Accounts grant funded program for the Compassion Capital Fund grants. We are also joined with Tammy Lovell, who is the State Policy Advisor in the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program in the Bureau of Justice Assistance in the Office of Justice Programs for the U.S. Department of Justice. Ms. Lovell has been with the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs since 2020. She is a grants program management specialist for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Office. In this role, she manages and provides guidance in the administration of Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, grant funding, Adult Drug Court grant funding, JAG grant funding, Justice for All, effective administration of criminal justice training and technical assistance grant funding, and coronavirus emergency supplement funding. Ms. Lovell has been managing formula and discretionary grant funds for over 14 years. She first started administrating grants for the Maryland State Administrative Agency with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services as a grant specialist, where she managed over 150 grants for the state of Maryland and served as the senior law enforcement program manager. We are also joined by Michael Adams, who is the senior research associate for Booz Allen Hamilton, who is a contractor for the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the U.S. Department of Justice. Michael brings 7 years of experience in performance measurement, data analysis, and data visualization in the criminal justice space. Mr. Adams has been a part of the BJA PPI team for 5 years for the Office of Justice Programs Performance Measurement Project contract. Mr. Adams supports multiple programs across the forensic and substance use disorder portfolio. We are also joined by Sam Wilcox, who is the research associate at the Conover Associates LLC, contractor for the Bureau of Justice Assistance for the U.S. Department of Justice. Ms. Wilcox brings 5 years of experience in the criminal justice field, conducting criminal justice research and data collection, specializing in performance measurement and management, program evaluation, data analysis. Ms. Wilcox has been a member of the Planning, Performance, and Impact team for the Office of Justice Programs Performance Measurement Project contract for about 2 years. She currently supports multiple programs across the substance use and persecution and public defense portfolio. I am Demetrius Thomas. I am the Deputy Program Director at the Council of State Government's Justice Center in the Behavioral Health Division, and I oversee the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program Training and Technical Assistance, Grantees. Prior to joining the Justice Center, I worked with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, where I led several initiatives at the intersection of criminal justice and mental health and mental and behavioral health, including establishing the city's first ever diversion centers, co-response teams, and mobile crisis teams. We want to again congratulate you all for being recipients of the JMHCP 2021 award, and thank you all for joining the webinar. I now will turn over things to Maria Fryer, who will talk a bit about the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Maria Fryer, and I'm a policy advisor for the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Grant Program, or as you know it, JMHCP, in the policy office at the Bureau of Justice Assistance, also known as BJA. So again, we're so happy that you're back. We're happy to be with you today and to help be a part of this webinar. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, I've been at BJA a little over 7 years now, but I come from many of the programs in our same communities, places and programs that you all represent here today over 20 plus years. And so I really take it to heart in managing this portfolio. And I see my work history in all the work that you do as well. So I'm just really glad that you're with us here today. And today we're going to focus on managing your program, which is really important to the success of your program. It's a lot of post-award requirements and process, and that all ties in with goals and objectives. And it's just really important work. And overall, considering everything that we've shared so far, what we're really trying to do is just produce better outcomes for people with mental health and co-occurring substance use disorders in the criminal justice system, and of course help you be successful in your program. We also, of course, are trying to reduce the prevalence of people with mental health conditions in jails, and think through best practices and think about people who we consider perhaps high utilizers of multiple systems, and ways to improve access and connections to community-based behavioral health care. All really important work that you're doing every day. So at BJA, our mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support local, state, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. And specifically, BJA provides funding to support law enforcement and the criminal justice system more broadly, and to reduce recidivism more broadly, and of course, victims of crime, and through the development of the implementation of policy and services and sound grants management. BJA strengthens the nation's criminal justice system and restores security in communities. So far, you've heard from me about the role of the policy office, and also within BJA, we mentioned is the programs office. And last week we told you we were going to introduce you a little bit further to the programs office and the work that they do and how they'll help you. And we in the policy office work hand in glove with the programs office together, planning and implementing and helping to support your program. So today you'll be hearing a lot more from them than from me. And the programs office manages the individual awards that each of you have received. And as such, you've been assigned a grants manager, either Nikisha Love or Tammy Lovell. And Nikisha and Tammy will be your contact within BJA and support you. And they will also have support from their supervisor, Eric Dietrich. And he is the division chief who can answer all of your questions pertaining to allowable costs, management of the award, and reporting. But Nikisha and Tammy are your first contacts, and you'll be hearing from them very soon. So the goal of JMHCP and the grant program itself is to develop collaboration across the criminal justice system and behavioral health systems, from law enforcement to pretrial to courts, jails, and community supervision, and to learn how to have successful partnerships that increase efficiencies and improve public safety and outcomes for people with mental health conditions, in co-occurring mental health conditions and substance use disorders who come in contact with the criminal justice system or are in the criminal justice system. So again, we're so happy to have you here today, and we're going to talk more about the importance of grants management and how it relates to the success of your program. So next, I'm going to turn it back over to Demetrius to talk a little bit more about the CSG Justice Center, history of JMACP, and discuss the training and technical assistance providers' role in your grant program. Thank you so much, Demetrius.
Thanks, Maria. As Maria said, I'm just going to give you some background on the Council of State Government's Justice Center. The Justice Center is a national, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that combines the power of membership association representing state officials in all three branches of government, with the expertise of a policy and research team focused on assisting others to attain measurable results. Our staff develops research-driven strategies to increase public safety and strengthen communities. This slide describes a bit more about our work style and how we strive to reflect Justice Center core values, which includes a commitment to being independent and nonpartisan in every aspect of our work, providing vigorous, trusted, high-quality analysis, developing practical and innovative solutions informed by data and research, promoting collaboration and building consensus, and being inclusive and respectful of diverse views and experiences. As the training and technical assistance provider for JMACP, we are here to help you and your grant to achieve success. You will receive a TA coach who will help support you in reaching your grant goals. If there are any changes to your grant programmatic design or budget issues, we will discuss it with you and refer you to your BJA SBA state policy analyst as needed, as Maria mentioned. We help provide BJA with information on grantees' progress and update them on the grant work happening throughout the country. We hold monthly calls with BJA programs and policy offices to make sure we are all on the same page and aligned. As mentioned during the orientation part 1, you will be each given a TA coach who will be reaching out to you soon. If you have any questions in the interim, please feel free to contact me and I will do my best to answer your questions. I am now going to pass it over to Nikisha, who will begin to discuss the budget and grant management process. Nikisha?
Thank you, Demetrius. Good afternoon, and welcome and congratulations to all of the 21 Justice and Mental Health grantees. I am one of your grant management specialists. My name is Nikisha Love. So today we will speak on grant management overview. The BJA Programs Office works with grantees to ensure grant-funded projects are implemented successfully and in compliance with all relevant program-specific and federal requirements. Your BJA grant manager is your primary point of contact for any grant, administrative questions, or actions. These are the grants management topics that we will cover in this orientation. The final slides will have resource links and contact information, to include a link to training resources for completing the actions in JustGrants, which we will discuss. Award acceptance and conditions. Every grant award is entered into in the form of a legal agreement between your agency and the federal government. It is important that you review and understand the terms of the agreement, which you will include conditions you are responsible for adhering to in management and implementation of the award. Some standard conditions are applied to all awards, such as required compliance with the DOJ Grants Financial Guide and the uniform requirements found in Title II, Part 200. There are also program-specific conditions and withholding conditions that we will discuss on the next two slides. This slide has a link to information on the standard conditions applies to all FY21 awards. Program-specific conditions. The authorizing legislation for FY21 Justice and Mental Health, Collaboration, and CMP awards includes specific requirements that are reflected in 3 award conditions, which are summarized on this slide. The direct services condition details the eligibility requirement for participants to receive direct services under the grant. The match requirement condition states that your approved budget must have the required level of non-federal match consistent with the cost share requirements in the statute, and that receiving a project period extension to your award may require a budget modification to maintain the required match level. We will discuss match in a later slide. Lastly, the planning phase. Condition reflects the statute language that authorizes planning grants and implementation grants. Since BJA issues awards with combined planning and implementation activities, this condition requires that all grantees complete the planning phase within the first 12 months of the award, which is completed upon BJA approval of the planning and implementation guide. Only then are you approved to move to the implementation phase. Note that all grantees will only have access to $100,000 in federal funds for completion of the planning phase, with the remainder released upon completion and BJA approval of the Pnii guide. Withholding award conditions. The planning phase condition we just discussed only withholds part of the federal award funds. However, your award will have one or more other award conditions that prevent obligations, expenditures, and drawdowns on all of your award funds until certain conditions are met. The Conditional Clearance Awards conditions note that OJP's Accounting Office, OCFO, has not fully reviewed or approved the application budget. This condition will withhold all funds until OCFO approves or clears the budget. Other withholding conditions may have been applied by BJA due to missing or insufficient information from your application that must be addressed. For example, if the MOU attached to your application was not fully executed, it is important to work with your assigned BJA grant manager to provide any necessary documents needed to remove any active withholding award conditions before your agency can obligate, expend, or draw down award funds. Match requirements. The JMHCP and CMP programs have an escalating match requirement, which is defined on this slide. Your budget will not be cleared by OCFO unless the match is met. Regarding match, any committed non-federal costs must meet the same rules for being allowable, reasonable, applicable, just as federal funds. Cash or in-kind match is acceptable. Cash match means any cost your organization pays through its budget accounting system. For example, your agency's salaries, fringe, supplies, etc. The cost should be based on actual costs incurred and must be documented. In kind, third-party match is any cost another agency or individual contribution toward the project. For example, volunteer hours, another agency's salary, and etc. You must maintain documentation support how the value was derived. Budget clearance process. Your budget must be approved, cleared by both BJA and OJP's Accounting Office, OCFO. OCFO cannot fully review budgets prior to award notification due to a technical issue in JustGrants preventing verification of non-federal match by project year. OCFO is not processing budget clearance GAMs. We expect a fix on or before February the 24th when OCFO reviews a budget and it requires changes. A budget clearance GAM will be change requested and will appear in the grant award admin's work list to make the requested changes and resubmit. Unallowable costs. As a reminder, in addition to the costs listed as unallowable in the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, the listed costs are unallowable under your award. This information was in the solicitation. Grants Financial Management Training. An award condition requires that the grant award administrator and financial manager assigned to your award must complete training within 120 days of grant acceptance. Successful completion on or after January the 1st, 2019 fulfills this requirement. There is a link to the online training on this slide. You will need your DUNS number and the award number to register. Send your certificate of completion to your assigned BJA grant manager when done. Reporting requirements. Here are reporting reminders for your award. Please note that due to date, reporting period, and help desk numbers to assist with any technical assistance. The assigned grant award administrator is responsible for submitting the performance report. The assigned financial manager is responsible for submitting the financial report. Semi-annual questions. Previous JMHCP grantees know that this program used to report performance metrics in a separate system, the PMT. However, FY21 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program and CMP awards have transitioned to submitting performance measures directly in JustGrants. Within the JustGrants semi-annual performance report, there will be a question set pre-populated with the matrix questions. You must answer the question set completely, even if the project has not had operational for all or most of the reporting period. After answering the question set, you must click Submit in the performance report. There is a link to helpful job aids on this slide with instructions. Your grant manager will review your submitted report and reach out to you if additional information is needed. I will now turn this presentation over to my colleague, Tammy LaVille, who will discuss additional administrative requirements and grant award modification. Tammy?
Thank you, Nikisha. We're going to talk about subawards and procurement contracts. It is important for you to properly categorize subawards versus procurement contracts in your budget. I won't read all of the text on this slide, but it explains that there are crucial differences between the two that impact grant administrative requirements. For example, a procurement contract requires full and open competition, while a subaward does not. Additionally, with procurements and contracts, you should carefully review the resources linked on this slide, and if there are any questions on how you should categorize a particular cost, please consult your agency's legal counsel. Subrecipient management and monitoring requirements. You, as the award recipient, are required to monitor the performance and compliance of all subrecipients, just as OJP and BJA must do with all of our direct grant recipients. The previous slide has links to full details on what this entails. This summarizes the minimal requirements. FATA reporting. Recipients must report on all subawards that are over $30,000 or more via the FATA Subaward Reporting System, FSRS, within the end of the month following the date of the subaward agreement. Grant award modifications, GAMs. Changes are sometimes necessary for a given grant-funded project. Some changes you can make on your own without receiving prior approval required. However, some changes require prior approval per the Uniform Guidance, the DOJ Financial Guide, or the solicitation or statute for the particular grant program. This slide lists common types of GAMs where prior approval is required. Consult with your grant manager should you have any questions about changes to your project. Only the assigned grant award administrator for the award can submit or take action on the GAMs in JustGrants. GAM, changing the project period cost, no cost extension. The uniform requirements and OJP policy generally limit grants to one project period extension not to exceed 12 months in duration. It must be requested at least 30 days in advance, and it cannot be requested only to expend the remaining funds. And also, the recipient must not have any serious performance or compliance issues. Exceptions can be granted for extraordinary circumstances outside of the recipient's control, but must be approved by the BJA director and OJP CFO. BJA Compliance Monitoring. BJA is required to monitor the performance and compliance of your award throughout the life of the grant, to include day-to-day interactions, reviewing performance reports and GAMs, and through all information we have about the status of your award. We conduct desk reviews on your active awards each fiscal year. Your grant manager may contact you if a question arises or if action is required as a result of this desk review. Additionally, BJA managers conduct in-depth monitoring on a certain percentage of our active awards each year. We use a risk tool and other methods to identify the awards we will monitor each year. If we monitor your award, you will be required to submit documentation, set up a phone call, and conduct interviews and answer questions related to the grant. BJA will then issue a letter on the outcome to include listing any issues for resolution. This is an award condition requiring your participation. Additionally, with BJA Compliance Monitoring, this slide lists common issues that we identify during monitoring and that require resolution. Occasionally, resolution will involve returning funds to OJP or, in rare cases, suspension and/or termination of the award. In most cases, they can be resolved with additional documentation and/or updates to your agency's policies. Using links and numbers. This slide, as well as the next one, have useful links and information that you should bookmark and save. Next slide, please. And next slide. And here is some here's the contact information for Nikisha and myself, along with our state assignments. And we look forward to working with you on your fiscal 21 year awards and are happy to help in any way we can. And now I'm going to turn it over to Michael to discuss the performance management piece.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Nikisha. Good afternoon, everyone. This new grantee orientation presentation will cover several topics related to performance management at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. We will discuss requirements for data reporting, including what you need to report, where reporting happens, when reporting is due throughout the year, and how to report data. Specifics around your program and your respective reporting questionnaire, including recent revisions to measures, will also be discussed. We will then share some data reporting and goal setting best practices to set you up for success. Finally, we will share contact information and resources for you to get in touch with us if you need assistance with your performance measures or reporting at any time. Performance management is a process by which grantees regularly collect data on their grant activities to determine whether they are implementing activities as intended and achieving their desired goals and objectives. Using performance measures that capture inputs, outputs, and outcomes over time enables pre- and post-comparisons that can be used to assess change. BJA has established performance measures, for example, questionnaires, for each grant program. These measures were included in the original solicitation that you responded to. We'll also review the specifics of your program's unique questionnaire during this orientation as well. You can find additional information and several resources on the Office of Justice Programs Grant Performance Measurement and Progress Reporting Information Portal at the BJA Performance Measure website listed here. Performance measures have many purposes and benefits to your program and for BJA. They allow BJA to look at your program holistically, as well as at the local level to identify areas of success, as well as potential opportunities for improvement. This also allows BJA to target training and technical assistance resources to subjects or localities that need them most. Furthermore, BJA routinely receives data calls and requests, sometimes from Congress or the White House, and relies primarily on the data submitted by grantees during reporting periods to respond to these inquiries. BJA and OJP regularly track progress towards goals and report annual key performance indicators to leadership during budget formulation as well as ongoing yearly monitoring. Lastly, DOJ is required to comply with the reporting requirements of federal laws, including the Government Performance and Results Modernization Act of 2010, the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act of 2014, and the Grant Reporting Efficiency and Agreements Transparency Act of 2019. Furthermore, there are three required sources of data that you will use to report: performance measures, narrative questions, and closeout questions. First, the performance measure questions for your program are a series of questions that measure outcomes of grant activities and demonstrate the accomplishment of goals and objectives of BJA programs. Next, a series of narrative questions related to the grantee's specific goals, objectives, barriers, and successes are also provided to grantees to be used for data reporting and are reported only in January and July on a semi-annual basis. Lastly, closeout questions are a series of questions grantees will need to respond to only when activities have been completed and the grant is ending. Currently, there are two systems in place that both facilitate performance reporting for BJA. Which system you report in is determined by when you received your award. Grantees who receive their award prior to FY21 will continue to report quarterly in the Performance Measurement Tool, or PMT, until further notice. Grantees who receive their award in FY21 will report semi-annually in the JustGrants system. Again, for awards received before FY21, you will continue to enter data in PMT every quarter until otherwise directed. The report that is generated by the PMT will then be uploaded into the JustGrants system twice a year in January and July. And you can also access the PMT by following the link below on this page as well. Grantees who receive their award in FY21 will enter their data semi-annually using revised measures in the new JustGrants reporting system, which replaced the grant management system, otherwise known as GMS, as of October 2020, and you can access JustGrants using the link below on this page as well. This table outlines the reporting schedule for both the PMT and JustGrants. As you can see in the third column, PMT reports will be due every quarter, whereas JustGrants reporting will be required semi-annually in January and July. The PMT is accessible year-round for you to review and edit your data, generate reports, and more. But you'll need to contact the PMT help desk to unlock your reports when you need to revise previously completed reports. Please note that reports are due 30 days after the end of a reporting period. JustGrants is accessible for data entry after a data collection period closes. 2021 JMACP awardees will be able to fill out their questionnaire on a semi-annual basis directly in JustGrants. For example, 2021 JMACP awards may upload their data from July 1st to July 29th for the July submission period. On the other hand, January 1st to July 31st for the January submission period to successfully complete their performance report in JustGrants. Please note, if the performance measure report is not submitted by the due date, its status will immediately transition to delinquent, and your grant manager or state policy advisor will likely contact you for your site's data submission. There's a 15-day grace period after the due date before funds are frozen for delinquent performance reports. That being said, I'll transition the presentation over to my colleague Sam, who will go over the JMHCP questionnaire.
Thanks, Mike. In order to prepare for the data you'll need to collect for the performance measurement reporting, you will need to review the JMHCP Performance Measure Questionnaire. You can find the questionnaire at the link provided here. Please note that this link will direct you to the revised measures that are currently in JustGrants. Here are the categories of questions that are in the revised questionnaire. Please take a moment to review. Next slide. After answering questions about general award administration, such as if you have activity to report on in a given reporting period, you will be directed to answer questions on partnership activities. Specifically, you will be asked if your program has established an advisory group, and if so, what types of activities the group has engaged in during the reporting period. In the program overview section, you will report any obstacles encountered during the reporting period. You will also indicate whether your program is in the planning phase or the implementation phase. In the program description and target population section, you will respond to a number of questions regarding program activities that are taking place using JMHCP funds. These questions help gather information about where in the criminal justice continuum your program operates. The next section asks if your program is using funds to support law enforcement and prosecutors to respond to and mitigate credible threats of targeted violence, or if program funds are being used to seek assistance from mental health professionals and threat assessment experts to identify and intervene with individuals with mental illness who are mobilizing towards violence. Additionally, the section includes questions on how referrals to services are made, as well as the number of individuals who were screened, assessed, referred to, began receiving, and are engaged in services during the reporting period. This set of questions aims to evaluate the recidivism-related outcomes, such as recidivism reduction of your program. For this purpose, you must establish a baseline for comparison for recidivism rate to compare against the recidivism rate among your program participant cohort. Please note that non-governmental agencies, for example, community treatment organizations or private nonprofits, are not expected to track recidivism data using administrative records. In this section, you will be able to report on up to 5 trainings per reporting period. For each training, you'll be asked who provided the training, who the target audience was, the number of people trained, and what funds were used to provide the training. You will also be asked to describe the impact, if any, that the training had on specific outcomes related to the goals of your program. Next, you'll be asked to report about any technical assistance received during the reporting period. TA is targeted assistance to a site, agency, or jurisdiction for the purpose of assessing gaps, barriers, and needs, developing strategic plans, or creating innovative approaches to emerging or complex issues. Again, you will be able to report on up to 5 TA interactions per reporting period. You will report the name of the TA reporter, the TA topic, the number of engagements, the level of satisfaction, and any feedback you have on the TA provider, and what funds were used to provide the TA. You will also be asked to describe the impact that the TA will have on specific outcomes related to goals of your program. Finally, when you have completed your grant program, spent down your funds, and are ready to close out, we have some specific closeout questions related to important outcomes for the JMHCP program. Please make sure to review these questions so that you can plan to collect this data throughout the life of your program. When responding to the narrative questions, you will need to define goals that you have for your program. Keep in mind that goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It is good practice to review your goals on a regular basis and reassess how you are doing. Make sure to use data to describe how you are doing, as well as an anecdote that describes some of the good work that you are doing. Here are a few examples of some well-defined SMART goals that will set this program up for success. While the goals on the left are great goals, they are difficult to measure and not specific enough to measure success. We would also like to share some tips to improve data quality that your program can do from the very beginning. It is recommended that a designated staff person coordinates all performance measure data collection and entry to ensure consistency. If this is the first time you will report data, make sure you are familiar with the data you will need to collect and report. Do this by reviewing the PDF version of the questionnaire. Ensure a backup person or persons are aware of the data collection and reporting process so they can fill in if the designated staff person is unavailable or leaves the role. Consider available data collection methods, including case management systems or other databases, spreadsheets, tracking intake forms, or other methods. If partner organizations are included in your program design, be sure to engage with them from the start in the planning process. Determine if formalized agreements are needed to ensure the necessary data is collected and that the program meets its goals and objectives. Here is the BJA PMT Help Desk contact information and a list of available resources that will provide you with additional information as needed. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with the exception of federal holidays. We strive to return every email within 24 hours, so please don't hesitate to send us an email even after business hours. On behalf of BJA and the Planning, Performance, and Impact team, thank you for your time, dedication, and hard work. Next slide. Next slide. I will now pass it back over to Demetrius.
Thank you, Sam. We will now begin the question and answer portion of the webinar. We will respond to as many questions as possible in the time remaining. As a reminder, you can ask a question by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and entering your question. As we are taking questions, we will advance the remaining 2 slides, which has information about the presenter's contact information. Also, as a reminder, this webinar has been recorded and will be posted along with the slide deck on the Justice Center website within the next few weeks. All right, we will begin taking questions. Saw some questions coming in, were able to respond, and then there's some additional questions coming in. One question coming in, and I also want you all to know we are being joined by Eric Dietrich, who is the division chief in the office of the programs office within BJA, and he's on, and he will also be able to assist in asking budget and JustGrants management questions. The first question is I'm going to pitch it to you, Nikisha. The first question is, if we had training as part of our proposal and allocated dollars to pay for overtime of officers for training, does the program have to get approval for the specific trainings from BJA?
Okay. If the training was already put into the budget and the budget has been approved, then no additional approval will be needed.
Okay. And if the trainings weren't initially put into the budget, just for information purposes, what would the program need to do?
Yeah, the grantee would need to either reach out to myself or Tammy to let us know that they want to send officers to training, and we have to make sure that it is applicable to their program, and ask them how are they going to, pay for the training? Are they going to move funds from somewhere else? So it may inquire that they may have to do a budget modification. It all depends on the circumstance.
That makes sense. Tammy, this is kind of a B to the response Nikisha just gave, but I think you can answer this. How can a program know whether a budget has been approved? How can they confirm that?
Well, they will receive a grant award modification notice automatically once OCFO clears the budget. So those emails go directly to the grant award administrator. But if they have any questions directly, or if they haven't for some reason they haven't received that email, they should reach out to their grant manager, which would either be myself or Nikisha.
Got it. Thank you so much. The next question I can answer. Could you tell us where on the website to go to get these recorded webinars? Yes, I'll drop the link for you of the Justice Center events page where we will record our webinars. The next question. Okay. Tammy, it appears that someone who's probably under your state, so they're your grantee, was having some issues with JustGrants, and they're just going to reach out to you directly.
That's fine.
Just putting that out to you. Another question, did I hear correctly that recidivism information will now need to be tracked using administrative data sets? I think I'm going to kick this question to Sam, because I believe, Sam, you discussed this.
Yes, you should be establishing a baseline for comparison so you can compare your recidivism rate among your program participant cohort. But if you're a non-governmental agency, such as a community treatment organization or a private nonprofit, you're not going to be expected to track that using administrative records.
Got it. Thanks, Sam. Maria, I'm going to kick this next question to you. Is every grantee starting at the same time? And when is the start of the grant period?
Sure. So yes, the grant period, performance period begins October 1, and ends September 30th. So we run on the federal fiscal year. And even though, with JustGrants, things got started a little bit late, however, the performance period still runs the same for all grantees.
Thanks, Maria. Wait, did I hear someone else have a follow-up? Okay. The next question, I'll take it. It is, are you able to provide additional information on how to obtain and submit the planning and implementation guide discussed during the last webinar? Yes. Once you're receiving your Pnii guide, as we call it, before you receive your Pnii guide, or at the time of receiving your Pnii guide, you first will be assigned with a TA coach. That TA coach will then have a first call with you, and that will start in March. During that first call, the PA coach will give a little bit more background of the Pnii guide, and after that initial first call, the TA coach will send you directly your Pnii guide. As we said before, the Pnii guides is very specific to a specific program or specific grant track, whether it's Connect or Protect, or if it's the JMHCP grant track. So you will receive your Pnii guide after that first initial call with your TA coach. I'm going to kick this question to, I think it was Nikisha who presented on this slide. Nikisha, do we need to submit the certificate of completing the financial grants management training? And if so, to whom should they submit that certification to?
Okay, you would submit that to either myself or Tammy, whoever is designated as your grant manager.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nikisha. Okay, Nikisha, one last question to you. Or another question to you, I should say. Should we have received OCFO budget clearance yet? And I think Eric responded to that question, but just again.
Right. Yeah, as of right now, because of a technical issue, the budgets have not been reviewed or cleared just as of yet. So we should be hearing something, as Eric has stated, I think it's around February the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. We should know a little bit more about what's going on in the system with the budget.
Perfect, thank you. Any other, yes, one other question or another question. Should we have received our access information to the reporting sites already, or will those be shared by our TAs or individual program officers? I think that is a question for either both Nikisha or Sam. Could you answer that question?
Okay, I'm a little confused about what they're asking.
Reporting sites, so maybe the PMT or where to submit the questionnaires, like should they already have access to those sites?
Okay.
Yes, to the PMT and JustGrants.
I'd say based off of the information that I had presented in the slide, that this year that grant applicants for FY21 will not be reporting in the PMT. They will be reporting in JustGrants. So nothing will, I would have to go back and look at exactly when it should have been due, which probably would have been, it should have been semi-annual.
So no, I guess, no, just for clarification, I guess the question is, if they need to submit, whether in PMT or JustGrants, should they already have their access information for those portals in order to submit whatever needs to be submitted?
Right, whoever is the designated grant award admin, that will be the person that will have access to submit as it relates to, as we would say, the PMT, which is the performance part, and whoever is, right, the measurement, and whoever is allocated in JustGrants as the financial person, they would have to go in JustGrants to submit the financial report.
And should that person, as you are familiar, should they already have that information?
Yeah, because
okay.
Once they've been designated into the system, they will get those automated emails from JustGrants.
Got it perfectly. So to answer your question, yes, that person should, Lindsay, that person that is designated, as Nikisha said, should have that information. So if you're not that person and you don't know, you may want to circle back just to ensure that that person has that information. The next question is for Michael. Michael, the question is, if we received our award grant in fiscal year 21, then we only need to submit our reports on a semi-annual basis in JustGrants. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess those are, folks are having conversations amongst themselves, so that, and they're figuring out and problem solving amongst themselves, so that's great. Okay, any other questions?
Demetrius.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Nikisha. I just wanted to jump on real quick and say that when the person is designated in JustGrants to assign roles, please make sure that when you're assigning the roles that you are putting in correct email addresses and phone numbers, because what we have noticed is that some of the names, like some people have been designated, but there's no information. So if JustGrants is trying to send you something, again, once the budgets have started to be reviewed and information has to be sent to you all, you will not be able to get it if we don't have email addresses for you inside of JustGrants.
Got it. We have one more question that came in. Lindsay, I dropped, this question is for me. It was the person did not see the recording. I just dropped the page that will have the recordings on it. The recordings haven't been linked yet. They both will be linked within the end of this week or the beginning of next week. But that is the page where you'll be able to access it. Any other questions Or what are your other questions? Okay, I'm gonna just give it a few more seconds. What I can do is, okay, answer. All right. What I want to do before we log off, there were a few links that Sam had in her presentation, and I just want to drop them in for folks now. When can we expect to hear from our TA person? You all should be hearing from your TA person in the beginning of March. I would say no later than the second week of March. In addition to also hearing from your TA person, you should also know that they are, in addition to these general orientations, they are 2 additional orientations, and these orientations are specific to your grant track. So if you are a Connect and Protect grantee, you'll have your very specific orientation where we would dig in deeper and talk more about your specific Pnii guide, the specific services that we are offering as the TTA provider to you all, and you will also be able to hear from those who fall under your grant track for that more peer-to-peer connection. And similarly, we'll have the same specific grant track orientation with JMHCP grantees. Those orientations will be held the second week of March. So around March 9th, March 10th, depending on what grant track you fall under. But again, you'll hear from us in terms of what date that is, giving you that information, allowing you to register for that. And around that time, or a little after that time, you will also be hearing from your TA person. What are other questions or thoughts? All right, so we have about 27 minutes remaining, but if we don't need that time, we don't need to use it. Give you 27 minutes back on your lives. I want to thank everyone for participating in the webinar. I want to specifically thank our presenters, Maria, Nikisha, Tammy, Michael, Sam, as well as Eric for jumping in. I also want to thank my colleague, Andrea, for operating the slide deck for me. And again, thank you all for attending. Congratulations on being recipients of the fiscal year 21 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration TTA program. And I look forward to working with you all, and I'll be in touch. All right, have a great day, everyone.